Happy Monday, Broncos country, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. I'm your host, Bree Maestas, joined as always by Joey Richards. Joey, how are you?
Bree, I'm doing fantastic today.
Yeah.
I'm doing absolutely great. Good day at work, really solid day just in general. Woke up early, got a really productive day in, and then, yesterday we got news of the Caden Stearns interview, which will be coming on Wednesday, and we'll be talking about that a little bit. But yeah, just a really good day. How are you doing?
I am so excited for Wednesday's episode. And if you are unaware, please like and subscribe so you can be alerted when that episode goes live. We will be live with Caden Stearns from your Denver Broncos on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time here on Mile High Sports. And if you're watching right now, we are live. So you can go on over to the YouTube or the Facebook and have a conversation with us. I would love for all the questions and comments that you have. We'll be here with you for the next 30 minutes or so. So any questions that you have about the topics we are discussing, bring it. Joey, we got to start off finalized coaching staff for the Denver Broncos, at least so far. You've got head coach Sean Payton. You got the assistant head coach and Mike Westhoff, Joe Lombardi, Vance Joseph, Ben. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Kawika?
Bree, your guess is as good as mine.
Chris Banjo, Davis Webb coming in as the QB coach, new hire, running backs coach, and Lou Iena. Tell me who you're most excited about out of those names that have been dropped this past week.
Who I'm most excited about? Honestly, I am most excited about O-line coach Zach Strief just because he's been in the NFL. And, something that I'm most excited to see how he does. That's kind of a mystery to all of us. This is his first time as an O-line head coach or an O-line coach, but he was a really good right tackle for the Saints for a really long time. For those that aren't aware, he was a guy that was in Sean Payton's very first draft class as a head coach with New Orleans, went through a long tenure with him, retired a Saint with Sean Payton. And even in his retirement press conference, Sean Payton was talking about this guy needs to be a coach. So I'm excited to see him. I am really, really love that they are putting former players as coaches. I think that's a big deal. I really do. I think that's lost a lot of the time. Like, do I think that I can coach O-line? Like, I study O-line. I do. I love it. It's the position I played in high school. I played O-line, D-line. I did a little of all of that. I love it. But am I as knowledgeable as a former NFL player? No, I'm not. I can't relate to these guys like a former actual player could, who knows the struggle, who knows everything about what goes into being an actual NFL football player. So while I look up and down this list, Bree, it's exciting to me that there are former players. I think the mix of having a Sean Payton, who was a college quarterback, he was never an NFL player, but established play caller in the NFL. And then you're looking at his position coaches and you're saying, oh, that guy played in the NFL. That guy played in the NFL. I like the mix that they have there.
You ended abruptly as you normally do, Joey Richards. You caught me off guard. You mentioned something specifically about the defensive line, and the defensive line coach is returning from last season. Marcus Dixon is going to be back under Vance Joseph. What kind of continuity there? Does that help the defensive line continue to succeed, much as though they did last season?
Yeah, he was a big one, Bree. He was a big one to retain. This is what the Broncos think of him, right? They said that Marcus Dixon and Christian Parker were staying with the team before they even announced a defensive coordinator. They were still doing interviews at the point where they said Christian Parker and Marcus Dixon are coming back, which, that tells you all you need to know about what, Sean Payton comes in and what he's evaluating, what he sees, and what we should be expecting from these guys. Marcus Dixon and Christian Parker are two guys that I think the Broncos need to retain. It would be a bummer to see any of them leave because they're that good at what they do. Marcus Dixon had a ton of success as an interior or as a defensive line coach. Christian Parker is looked at as a guy that could be a future defensive coordinator. He was interviewed for the Broncos defensive coordinator job, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a job in 1 or 2 years, truthfully, as a defensive coordinator, especially if Vance Joseph comes in here and does a good job with this defense.
And we've spoken about it on Let's Talk Broncos previously about the assumed regression that you might see in the defense as a whole. Joey, are you more or less worried about that? I know Zach Seegers had a conversation with us prior to him going on vacation about maybe it's not going to be so bad if the offense is going to get a little bit better, as though we have presumed as such. But I don't think it's accurate to lean too much into the idea that the offense will get well enough to, if the Broncos defense comes out of that top 5, top 10 ranking, that you can just kind of be okay with it. I don't think it balances out as much as maybe I thought that conversation was leading into. Can you expand on that a little bit more, so Broncos country knows where we're sitting with that?
So when you lead, all right, the Broncos through the like 3 of their last 4 defensive coordinators or play callers, and that one's Vance Joseph, right? But 3 of their last 4, it was Wade Phillips, Vic Fangio. Those are 2 legends at defensive football, at coaching defense. And then Evero, who looks like he's on that trajectory, right? We might be a little spoiled here with the defensive coordinators. These guys don't grow on trees. And while I really like Vance Joseph, will he live up to the standards of those guys? I would say probably not, because all of those guys in their time when they were the Broncos defensive play callers, I would say they were top 5 in the entire NFL at what they were doing. What are the odds the Broncos get another top 5 guy? I would say pretty unlikely. That's just my take. It's just unlikely. So will they take a step back? I'd say probably so. Just a little bit, just out of the fact that they are not getting that same caliber of defensive coordinator. Do I think it's going to be massive, where the Broncos all of a sudden are the worst defense in the NFL and they're giving up all these points? No, I don't think that. So I do think that the Broncos getting a Sean Payton in the offense improving because of that. And then, hey, we're taking a little hit on defense because we need a Sean Payton in the building to improve the offense. I think it's fine. You do it. Quarterback is the most important position in football. There's no other position in any other sport like quarterback in the game we all love, why everyone's watching right now. If Sean Payton can improve that position, it's well worth it. It's well worth it 1,000%. You do need a good defense. You do need a good offense. But the most important thing the Broncos need to focus on is making sure that quarterback position is right. And I think Sean Payton is the guy to do it.
What's interesting is there was a lot of conversation about, well, once Vance Joseph was hired, the defensive coordinator was obviously figured out. A lot of Broncos country wanted to know what the offensive coordinator position would look like. Now that Joe Lombardi has been officially named the OC of your Denver Broncos, how do you think he offsets Sean Payton's ideal plan for the Denver Broncos offense moving forward with Russell Wilson, and then potentially maybe 2024 if it doesn't work out? Because I think there's 2 different realms of thinking, right? I think Joe Lombardi is here to stay with Sean Payton for a while, but maybe 2023 looks different than what 2024 does. So walk me through what you think 2023 is going to look like under Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi.
Yeah, the Joe Lombardi hire, there's a lot of people that aren't too happy about it. And I kind of get it, just on like face value. The position that he had with the Chargers is the same name. The offensive coordinator is the position he's getting with the Broncos. But here's the thing, guys. The title's the same. The job is not. Joe Lombardi was a play caller over there. He was in charge of the offense. He was the offensive guy. They had a defensive head coach, Brandon Staley. And Joe Lombardi was in charge of running that offense. It's different in Denver. He's second in command. Things are going through Sean Payton. So like I said, job title the same, but is it actually the same? Is the position the same? No, it's not. It's really not. And Joe Lombardi is a guy that had success in this role prior. The reason why he got promoted to be a play caller was because of his success at working under a Sean Payton with the Saints and stuff like that. If Sean Payton trusts him, Sean Payton is the guy that had all those great offenses for so many years. I would definitely trust him to say Joe Lombardi is just like my second guy. And I'd also, before I move on here, and I'm kind of ranting now, but what that guy's role is will be team to team. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do with the Broncos. It could be really mitigated to where it's like, okay, wide receiver coach, O-line coach, all these guys are a little more important than the offensive coordinator when he's not the play caller. Or he could be a guy that Sean Payton really values his insight from and, is taking information from him. It's a team-to-team thing on how they treat that offensive coordinator when they aren't the play caller. So I guess that's just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What's interesting though is something you touched on there, Joey, is that the role is going to be a little bit different. Although he may have been run out of the LA area for kind of two back-to-back seasons of a little hit or miss there. Sean Payton has worked with Lombardi in a capacity before where he feels comfortable enough bringing him in to
Right.
sort of facilitate his plan as his right hand man. So you're not leaving the reins necessarily in his control, which I think is exactly the plan that Sean Payton has here for Lombardi as the offensive coordinator. The BPA show wants to know, where do you think Kevin James fits in on this staff? He's an actor, so I don't really think he has a place on this staff, but appreciate you tuning in there, the BPA show. If you're not familiar with their show, Marcus Boggins and Patrick Chiotti do a fantastic job. Thanks for stopping in and watching, guys. Great segue to ask that if you do have any questions or comments, hop on over into the chat. You can join us on Facebook or YouTube. Get your comments and questions highlighted. And yeah, so I don't necessarily know. I saw that Broncos country maybe wasn't favorable towards this. And we knew with the hiring of Sean Payton, whoever he brought in as his assistants was going to cause a stir one way or the other. There was already contention with Sean Payton being hired as the head coach. Got to take a step past that. Bringing in Vance Joseph was a bit of a stir for Broncos country. And I think that they finally kind of have moved past that. The retention of Marcus Dixon and Christian Parker helped me with that decision because I think keeping that continuity there in those positional groups is only going to help the defense. I think for the offense, you have a different wait and see approach. Lombardi's going to come in, and we won't know until well into the 2023 season whether or not this was a good decision or not. So I would hope Broncos country would be able to maintain a little bit of patience, but I know that that's not always possible because we're seeing really big changes come down the pike, and we're all wondering how it's going to work out. At the end of the day, we have to see how Russell Wilson acclimates to a Davis Webb at quarterbacks coach, a Joe Lombardi as offensive coordinator, and Sean Payton as his play caller and coach. I'm kind of interested to see where it goes because I feel like Sean Payton is really building a team and a foundation around his vision for the Denver Broncos. We won't know what that looks like for a while. Joey.
Yeah, Bree. I mean, I just want to add on to your point here. You mentioned the continuity on defense with the Christian Parker and some of these defensive guys coming back. When I look up and down this coaching staff just as a whole, the thing that stands out to me really is the mix. Like in years past, you could be like with the Nathaniel Hackett, was that these guys are too young. They aren't experienced enough. You can go up and down it, and you're like, all these guys are kind of new in their role. There's no one that, was a former head coach and is now there. There's no guy that's coming from one position. There's no guy that was an offensive or a running back coach at one team and then moving to be a running back coach here. Everyone, it felt like, was getting promoted for the most part. Through this coaching staff, I'm looking at, I see former players, Bree, former NFL players through it that are getting their first crack at it. Newer, younger guys that also have that playing experience. I see former head coaches with Vance Joseph, that defensive coordinator. I get that nice mix of young and old. And then I also get some continuity with guys returning from teams in the past that players know in the locker room with the Christian Parker and a Marcus Dixon. It's just a good mix. If let's say this doesn't work out, what am I going to say was wrong about this coaching staff? It's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to be like, oh, it was too young. This coaching staff, i.e. the Vic Fangio era, it's outdated. These are terms people used. When I look at this one, what am I going to say? There's really not anything because it's a mix. It's a mix of everything. Former players, guys getting promoted, guys getting former coaches that have moved down. It's a mix. So I kind of like that aspect of it.
Okay. The BPO show has a question I want to hit on here. Do you think this offensive staff is built perfectly for developing a young QB?
I do like that we brought in a former quarterback as our quarterback coach. Is Joe Lombardi the best in developing a quarterback? I'm not so sure. I didn't love all the things he was doing with Justin Herbert. But Sean Payton is Sean Payton. That's what I just keep coming down to. At the end of the day, that's where it comes down to. And for those that don't know, Sean Payton is the guy that discovered Tony Romo. There's a good story on that, on how Tony Romo took less money to sign with the Cowboys when Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator there, because Sean Payton pursued him so hard as an undrafted free agent. Another fact people don't know is that before trading for Drew Brees, Sean Payton was trying to trade for Tony Romo before he ever started a game with the Cowboys yet. He was trying to make a trade for him to be the future starter of the Saints. So he clearly has an eye for talent and developed a guy. Drew Brees took a massive step. People like to throw some dirt on it, but it's not true. Drew Brees, you can go look at his numbers from when he was left the Chargers, from when he went with the Saints. He went from a one-time Pro Bowler to, in his very first year, was an All-Pro with the Saints. So I just, that's the type of faith I have in Sean Payton. The other guys under him are just guys Sean Payton trusts. That's the way I kind of look at it, honestly.
I think you have to look at it that way, Joey. The whole idea of hiring a Sean Payton, one of the most renowned coaching names in this cycle, if not in the last couple of cycles, to come back to the NFL with a specific, I mean, he's not coming back to the Denver Broncos because he thinks there's an off chance that he can fail, right? It's not because a necessary number was chosen and it was up to his standards. It's because he believes that he could take Russell Wilson, the current iteration of the Denver Broncos, and find more success than they found last season. I think the idea there is you trust them to bring in who they want to. And I know there's a lot of flack that Vance Joseph is going to get. I know there's a potential that even if the defense takes a relatively small step back, that a lot of the blame could get scapegoated on Vance Joseph. I just want to see how it plays out before I start making these wide sweeping speculative allegations that it's somehow a byproduct of the coaching staff that has been brought in. Joey.
Yeah, what another interesting aspect of this all, Bree, is that with Russell Wilson, you did have like a little distraction last year with, hey, I'm bringing in my own coaches into the locker room. I have my own office, and I'm spending, not just have my own office, I'm spending a lot of time in my own office, away from people. It seems like to me he's willing to give that stuff up and say, I know that that's not the best way to be a quarterback anymore. So it kind of goes hand in hand. We're getting Sean Payton, and then also it seems like Russell Wilson is like, I'm giving up these things that I know are a detriment to me. So I those probably go hand in hand in the Broncos' favor, I would say. Do I think Russell Wilson is going to be fantastic? I think that we kind of saw his best years. I'm going to be honest with everybody, but I think he could be the average quarterback for the Broncos, and that would be a major improvement from last year.
Okay, well, that puts a different spin on the conversation than I thought we were going to go, but I think it's a relatively fair point to say that maybe you're not hoping for the Russell Wilson resurgence where you have a quarterback who can create wins for his team, but a bit of synergy that the team is able to amass with appropriate coaching and leadership to where they can get more wins than they got last season. I think that is the kind of expectation that I'm hoping all of Broncos country takes for 2023, because last season it was much of a major letdown because expectations were up here, delivery was way down here, and we got to meet somewhere in the middle. I think that's all that I'm trying to get through with here. And I want also expectations to be very clear about what the roster is going to look like. There are a ton of free agents out there. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to the deadline. Zach Sears is going to join us for that conversation. Tammy Williams Richards with a Love Your Show. Joey,
Thanks,
do you know a Tammy? Oh, this is wonderful. Thanks, Mama Richards. Yeah. Oh.
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate you.
That warms my heart. It really did. I saw the last name and I thought, oh, maybe it is. Reprioritization of this Denver Broncos roster is going to mean a lot as we start shuffling through free agents, who the Broncos could re-sign, who they're going to bring in off of other teams. A Kareem Hunt comes to mind. But before we get to all of that and all that fun conversations, we're going to delay that just a little bit. Caden Stearns on Wednesday, and quite possibly we'll do some free agency talk on the next episode of Let's Talk Broncos. But I want to talk about a name out there for Broncos country that everyone seems to have a very strong opinion on. I spoke today on the Fan Cave with Mario Vitanzi about how important it was that Marcus Dixon returned to the defensive line for the Denver Broncos, but specifically its tie-in with Dre'Mont Jones and his return. Joey, I know you are a not only fan of Dre'Mont Jones, but you believe it's imperative that the Broncos make a strong concerted effort to bring him back on this team for 2023. The floor is yours. Convince everyone else.
Yeah, okay. So that franchise tag, it's a lot. I totally agree. It's at $19.73 million. It's a lot to bring Dre'Mont Jones back. It's a ton of money to put towards your cap when you have to rebuild a roster because you have a lot of holes throughout that offensive line. You want depth on defensive line. There's holes everywhere that people, you don't want to allocate all that money towards. The Broncos should just re-sign him, though. They should bring him back. We've had conversation that they have had conversations, but it doesn't seem like anything is imminent at the moment. The reason the Broncos should bring him back, though, Bree, is because it is really, really tough to find interior defensive linemen that can get after the quarterback in pass rush. And that's what Dre'Mont Jones just does so well.
An innate ability to get to the quarterback, and you're not going to be able to replace that type of talent or hope that what you have on the current roster is going to get to that level. Now, am I not saying he's replaceable at all? Like, I think there's probably a way where you could possibly find similar, I guess, talent, but it's not going to be for the same price. You're going to just be swapping at that point instead of taking a player who does well in this system, is a member of the roster, loves being in Denver, wants to continue working with this staff, and then you're going to leave a big question mark on whether or not somebody else can come in and replicate what he's been able to do. And he's got just a gold standard ability for the pass rush. So I'm concerned that if they do move on from Dre'Mont Jones, that they're not going to be able to get anywhere near his level of talent, and you're going to end up costing just as much. It's like a big risk without a reward.
Yeah. No, you're totally right, Bree. Like, what the price tag is for a player like that is what the price tag is. Going into this thinking I'm going to get a steal is the wrong way of thinking of it. Dre'Mont Jones is worth it. He is worth it. He's been with – I always talk about it like he's like – his development has been so it's almost like when you start a Madden franchise and you draft a player and then every single year you see them get 2 overall better. His development has just been small step after small step after small step to the player that we get today. He is a fantastic football player, and he's versatile. I can put him at the edge. I can put him interior. I might stand him up over a center. There isn't a position on that front 7 where in a certain scenario I wouldn't want him. Dre'Mont Jones is an exceptional football player with no off-the-field issues, with nothing like that. He's the exact type of guy you want to keep around. And then you look past it. Hey, guys, even if the Broncos bring back Dre'Mont Jones, they should probably add another interior defensive lineman for depth. They probably should. So him leaving, where does that put you? It just adds another hole to a roster that needs a ton. That's kind of my issue there. It's where do you go after that? Like, it's not like we have a guy that just steps in and plays. You just have another hole. So
we've been talking about that, Joey, like the holes that you already seen on the offensive side of the ball. You don't want to see those on the defensive side of the ball just because you can, and just because the price tag is just a little bit too pricey. Do I think he's going to end up garnering the full 19, almost $20 million. No, Coop has a great point here. Also, just for the room, I think it sends a great message as far as drafting, developing, and actually paying your guys with re-signing Dre'Mont. Just do it. Frankie Abbott also has a great point here.
Exactly.
Vance Joseph needs as much front seven guys as he can get. Yes, if
Totally.
Dre'Mont Jones is going to be one of your keystone players, pairing him up alongside DJ Jones, I think it's a no-brainer to keep that level of a player in the position that he is, especially as we're moving into a brand new season with a whole lot of question marks. You don't need to have those question marks on the defensive line.
Yeah, no, Bree. I mean, I don't even know what else to add to it. I've always said this. Dre'Mont Jones is the guy. I don't own a former Broncos jersey. I don't. You know, the only jersey that I can go out and wear right now is my throwback John Elway jersey. I have the Philip Lindsay jersey. I have some older Broncos jerseys. I'm on the hunt for a DT jersey. They don't make those anymore, so I'm having a tough time. But if the Broncos re-sign Dre'Mont Jones, he's the guy that I would go buy a jersey for. I've loved Dre'Mont Jones. He's exactly what I want in my front seven. He can get after the quarterback. Coming out of college, his big issue, Bree, was how is he going to hold up in the run? And is he elite in that area? No. Is he definitely playable and a guy that's a plus now? I would say probably yes. He can step in there and play. It just shows that development. Coop hit it perfectly. It's the guy you drafted. He's developed. He's done everything that you've wanted him to do to earn the money now. So now you pay him. That's what you do as a franchise. You want to send that message.
You trade Bradley Chubb and you see kind of that result that it has on the locker room. We don't want this. You don't want to keep repeating those same, I'm not going to call them mistakes, but I am going to call it something that actually had a strong impact on that locker room. And also the contract for defensive ends is just going to keep resetting. It's a thing that happens. You see it with all positions. Sometimes a player gets paid and you're like, that's a little too much. And it just resets the contracts for those types of players. And I honestly really don't think it's that bad. You have a player who finished with 6.5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, having just a straight up intense
He's
career. Just a baller. Just absolutely.
He's
And
a baller.
I don't understand why you wouldn't want to pay him. Rick Mendoza says, pay him what he wants. I agree with Colton in the chat. Extending Dre'Mont Jones is paramount, and it will go a long way in that locker room. I like the way that you both put that. I think that is absolutely something that all of Broncos country should be taking into consideration. But I do get it. I get the cost. I get that idea. I really do. But at the end of the day, it's not our money. It's about retaining top quality talent that I don't actually think you can go out and shop for. So it's not that, a running back that's a dime a dozen. It's a very strong defensive lineman who has more than earned his keep here for the Denver Broncos. So I hope he gets paid. That's my soapbox on that whole saga. We're happy to take more questions and comments while we're still here. But yeah, Joey, I think we all have to get the jersey if he resigns.
Big number 93 jersey. I've never seen him. Have you ever seen the Dre'Mont Jones jersey just walking around?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, see, you have to. That the Dre'Mont Jones jersey is going to be the jersey where it's like, I'm always looking for that one that's a little different, but I love the player, and Dre'Mont Jones fits that exactly. You'll be walking around, and if he resigns, I highly recommend all the Bronco fanatics to get the Dre'Mont Jones jersey, because you're probably not going to see, like, if you see that walking around the street, you're like, oh, that's a true Broncos fan. Like, that guy is a
guy
ball like,
or gal watches ball.
Yeah, without question, he knows ball. Like, yeah.
I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you. I'm going to get an Alex Singleton jersey just so everyone is aware. Which I hope they bring him back. They got one heck of a steal off of him, a $1.1 million contract for a whole year. Are you kidding me? NFL records for tackles. We'll talk more about free agents and all sorts of re-signing here on Let's Talk Broncos when Zach Seegers is back with us. Bill1293 over on YouTube says there's some options out there, but not many do what Dre does. Again, just a fantastic point from the Let's Talk Broncos community. We appreciate you, Bill. Thanks for chiming in. I am thinking about going to the Avalanche game tonight. And you know what I wish they sold there, Joey?
What do you wish? What do you wish, Brie?
I wish that they had this fancy little I shouldn't say little. It's a big brand of beer that's been around for I don't know, hundreds of years. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Brie, it's the best beer in the world. It's the Weinsteffen Hefeweiss beer. That's my favorite beer. If I were drinking a beer right now, it would be this beer because it is my go-to. It is the benchmark of the wheat style beer and the number one selling wheat beer in the entire United States. It's 5.4% ABV. It's hazy, fruity, effervescent. It's the highest rated German wheat beer in the United States. It's a great beer, and Brie, you mentioned it. It's the oldest brewery in the entire world. Why wouldn't you want to go support this? From Germany, not just the Hefeweiss beer do they have, though. I am a personal big fan of the Hef. They also have the Fest beer, which comes around, Oktoberfest type time every year. It's another beer I always look forward to getting. I load up on it when I have it. I have a whole case in my fridge right now of the Fest beer. And then their just original lager, the premium lager is fantastic. They just make really good beer down there. It's like they literally school people down there on how to make beer. Some of your favorite brands went to study how to make beer from Weinsteffen, and that's a true statement. You can look that up, go study that. It's true. So yeah, go drink a Weinsteffen. Highly, highly recommend.
Because it's hard to say, but easy to drink. Great
Yes,
part about it is it's got the banana and the cloves. I know that is the prominent
yes.
point of the hef, but it's not overwhelming. I think a lot of people, when they hear that, think it's going to be desserty. But Joey said it best: effervescent. Guys, we appreciate you sticking around here with us on a short but sweet episode of Let's Talk Broncos. Joey, where can everybody find your work?
Yes, everybody, please follow me at JR Drafts. But the main thing I want to punch home for this episode, next episode, Wednesday, you will be sitting here watching Caden Stern, Zach Seegers, Bree, and I. On this stage, I have a bunch of really good questions lined up for him. It's going to be fun. Caden Stearns, I think he might be starting this next year for the Broncos. And we're going to get an inside look, his thoughts on Sean Payton. Anything you guys want to ask, we'll highlight on the screen as well. As long as it's appropriate. So, but yeah, make sure you're here for Wednesday. Caden Stearns on the podcast. But Bree, where can they find your work? I know you did a really, really good job doing a radio show today with Mario.
I did. Mario Vatanzi joined me on the Fan Cave. If you want to listen to that, a couple of nuggets were dropped over there. You got to head on over to my Twitter, BrieMaestis303. Go watch that episode. It was a lot of fun. Bill says, nice hat, JR. Go Braves. So I don't know if he really likes your hat. Rick has a question I want to end with real quick. Joey, if you could answer this for me. And I believe the answer is yes. With future contracts, can the Walton Penner Group front load players' contracts with a huge signing bonus and have lower cap for the remaining years due to them having all of the cash available?
Yes, there's a lot of ways. When you're a rich owner, you can manipulate the salary cap in a lot of ways. You really can. It helps a ton. I'm really not the salary cap guy, but I listen to a lot of very smart salary cap people. And honestly, Zach Seegers being one of them. Zach Seegers is very in tune with the numbers and stuff like that. And when you have a rich owner, you can do stuff like the Chiefs have done to sustain a terrific roster for these years and give guys bigger signing bonuses to then have a lower hit towards your salary cap. So yeah, the Broncos could play around with that and make stuff happen.
Bill says you can, but the bill eventually comes due. Haha, Bill. Such an appropriate comment. You can catch me all week here with the Let's Talk Broncos crew. I can't say it enough. Tune in on Wednesday. We're going to have a lot of fun. I will block you if your questions aren't appropriate, though. Have a good night, Broncos country. We'll see you then.
See you guys.
Bye.